Welcome to the Dr. Lynn Santiago podcast. Since a young child, Dr. Lynn has had an unquenchable passion for psychology, concepts of self, and personal growth. Dr. Lynn interviews guests who answer the question, are we always becoming? Her guests include psychologists, mental health counselors, life coaches, spiritual counselors, consultants, authors who have been on a quest for knowledge and now dedicate their lives to helping others in the process of becoming. Be inspired by the personal becoming stories told by guests who share the risks and the challenges, the successes and the letdowns, the joys and the heartaches they each experience while on their own becoming journey. Now here's your host, Dr. Lynn Santiago.
Hi everyone, welcome back. Today's episode is a quest episode where I talk with John Morgan and talk about his quest for knowledge that led him to or on a path towards helping others in their becoming journey. John is a retired Army veteran who made the transition from warrior to clinical social worker with the purpose of helping fellow veterans. What I love really most about this interview is when John was sharing his own becoming story and the work that he does now, he touched on so many reasons why some of us decide to stop, give up, stop reaching for our goals and our dreams. He talks about the many barriers and obstacles and challenges he experienced through his life, including his academic experiences, right on through to a master's degree in social work. But he also shares with us the work he does now and how he helps ease or even remove the barriers that military veterans face as they make their transition from living in a military culture back to the civilian world. So let's get to it. Hi, John.
Morning, Dr. Lynn. How are you?
I am doing well, and thank you for being here. I'm just thrilled to have you. This is a quest episode, and I think that it's perfect for you. Quest episodes are about people who are in a quest for knowledge, and they move through what they resonates with them in order to help others, right, in their becoming story.
Yes.
And before we start, I want you to introduce you to Willow.
How you doing, Willow?
Willow joins us. She is a St. Leo psychology intern. And what is really awesome about that is that we all, three of us, graduated from, we're St. Leo, are interns.
Go Lions!
And graduated from St. Leo. And Willow, when do you graduate?
Next fall.
Okay. Are you almost there? Right? Can you see the light? Yeah. Yeah. So a wonderful experience that I had there. Certainly the number one academic experience with when I compare it to all the other universities that I attended. So beautiful. Okay. So I'm just going to throw it out there, John. Are we always becoming?
Yes, I believe that we are always becoming a better version of ourselves. And to elaborate on that, I feel that we should be seeking to seek self-improvement. And by that, we should set goals and aspirations for ourselves to achieve. And unfortunately, many of us, and I have in my past, been stagnated and just got comfortable where I was and just stagnated for years. And so I believe that becoming is that we should strive to become a better version of ourselves through improving ourselves, whether it be mentally, physically, or just in general, improving our home or in any other things, or taking up new hobbies. Try to expand ourselves. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I agree totally, and I don't think I've had any guests that said no. We get to one place, we just stay there, and there is no other growth. There is no drive or pull to continue on, right? And then the other piece is that I believe, yeah, the same as you, is that we can get stuck and stagnant, and and that keeps people from moving forward, right? All kinds of obstacles, and it's like, nope, can't move forward. Oh, so you have 23 years in the military,
Yes.
right? And that's a long time. There is a kind of an identity that you take on when you are a service member, right? Even a veteran would say we're a veteran, and then you make the shift. You made the shift into the academic world, right? Which is so much different. Tell us more about that. What was that like?
One of the most challenging things a veteran can do is to make the transition from military into civilian, and then also into the world of academia. It's very challenging because you've been doing something you mentioned, for such a long time. We have a certain culture, we have a certain language we speak, uh,
Hmm.
a certain way we do things. Our our lives are regimented. We wake up at a certain time. We do certain things. We're about it's all about the mission, getting things done.
Hmm.
And then going into civilian life, a lot of the civilians have just the mindset. The mindset's a lot different. They don't have that
Hmm.
mentality. It's like, oh, I need to do this. Um, Move with a purpose. Do this at a certain time. We need to get this done. And so a civilian might not be that driven, or oh, okay, well, we don't really need to do that. It's
Hmm.
we'll get it done eventually, and
Right, got plenty of
yeah.
time.
So I guess more a sense of urgency,
Yes.
and also going into the world of academia, that's a whole different world in itself, because you're dealing with people from many different cultures, backgrounds, and including other service members uh, and professors,
Hmm.
and so we have that mindset. One thing about those who serve in the military and then decide to pursue academia later, which I noticed, and I noticed for myself, that that individual is more mature than your average 17, 18, 19-year old,
Yes.
because we've had life experience, we've had roles of responsibility,
Hmm.
leadership experience,
Hmm.
and doing things that most civilians would never ever be able to do or
Right.
experience. And
Hmm.
so, with that being said, coming back to an environment where you have these kids who haven't experienced life at all,
Hmm.
and it's just, and another thing I noticed is that the respect that, and I've noticed that there's some disrespect as far as people who are older, and especially with the professors. That one example is one of my science classes, there was a gentleman he was a PhD, and so if someone with a PhD, you address them doctor or professor,
Hmm.
and so I think he addressed him Mister, and so of course this professor came back and said you need to address me as this, and then later on, I after the class, I pulled that kid to the side and say, look, this man has spent 8 to 10 years getting his PhD, and he's earned that title, and so
Hmm.
have some respect and address him by his title,
Hmm.
and either a doctor or professor. So that's one example of what I noticed about this other generation.
Hmm.
Not to bash him, but that's an observation I've made. And
Right.
working with other kids and other departments and other clubs and other organizations. But the one thing that I find really rewarding is I get questions. I meet with the ROTC students. We have a company, an Army ROTC company, which is part of USF. It's on campus at St. Leo. A lot of the cadets come up and ask me questions on, try to seek advice on how they should be as a lieutenant. Because I've seen many of them, and some of them were great, some of them were not so great, and so that's one of the things as a non-commissioned officer is to help our lieutenants become better at what they do. And so I find that really an honor to be able to share my experience and knowledge with these younger kids.
They look up to you. They have that respect.
Exactly.
They understand the amount of time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears that you put in as a military service member. Right.
Yes, and also kids, some other kids who have no affiliation with the military would ask me questions, and I'll kind of intrigued and interested, and like, wow, this guy's serving in the military. Wow, how was that like? What did you do? How was it? And just being curious, and I helped them out too. And that was part of being in working for the Office of Military Affairs and Services at St. Leo, which I did that in addition to my undergrad work.
So I'm interested in knowing, when we talk about the quest and the education quest, that you started with broadcasting, that you started your college path and journey with a broadcasting degree, or what was that about?
Well, I have an associate's in broadcasting from Suffolk County Community College up in Long Island, Sylvan, New York. How that came to be was I really did not want to study broadcasting initially. I wanted to pursue criminal justice because I had the mentality I wanted to help people. And so my dad kind of pushed me to pursuing that degree because he said I have a good speaking voice. And so I guess that's experience going to church and speaking in front of the congregation at a very small, young age. And he says, I have a very good voice. I could see you as an anchorman like Brian Gumbo. And so I had fun doing that degree. It wasn't the thing about any degree or any career field. You have to have a passion to do it.
Right.
And for that specifically,
I think you bring up another great point about what gets in the way maybe of people pursuing their own interests or the things that they are passionate about, is that they do what other people think they should do.
Exactly.
Right? And I see this now in my counseling field, where I will have people even lawyers who say, you know what, I only did this because my father's a lawyer, my mother's a lawyer, my grandfather's a lawyer, that it's a part of the family. And then they get through all of that time and money and now a salary that their families are dependent on, and they are so unhappy. They said, no, this is not what I want to do.
Yes.
Because other people, there was that expectation.
Yes. I had fun doing it. I had a lot of good times, met a lot of great people. And it was fun producing videos. It mostly emphasized television production. And so, I mean, if I decided to do something in broadcasting in the future, maybe doing stuff like voiceovers and stuff like that, I mean, if I decided to do something in that form, but I didn't have the passion for it. And so after getting my degree, I actually started working for this company, Whitman Packaging Company, which I worked for. I worked
in Hauppauge?
In Hauppauge, yes. Yes.
I worked there. I think every sophomore or senior worked at Whitman Packaging, right? Yes. Exactly. Oh my goodness.
So I worked there in the summers when I was started at 16, and I worked in the summer because I played football, and so towards August I had to quit for the summer and then get ready for football camp, and then for the season, and then obviously the school. I did that, and then after my senior year, I just stayed with the company, started going to Suffolk and working in the evening. Then when I finished my degree, actually I took a break. Actually, join the Army Reserve. I had to go for basic and the AIT. I came back, and then I finished up my degree, and then I worked for Whitman for another 10 years in the warehouse.
No way. 10 years there.
I gave them a total of 12 years, actually.
Wow.
So speaking of stagnant, I got very comfortable in what I was doing. I enjoyed what I did. It didn't make a lot of money, but it was enough for me to maintain my responsibilities as far as car insurance, little rent to with my parents. I was still living with my parents at the time, little rent for them, and just got comfortable and, as you said, stagnated. No aspirations, no goals at the time for that period of time.
And so, and then you went into the military. Oh, you were in the reserves at that point.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So 23 years is a long time. Just like I said, that there's this assuming of an identity. You talked about military culture. It's like you live, even family members are part of that culture. And then, then you get discharged or retire.
Yes.
What was it that led you to pursue a degree in social work, a bachelor's degree in social work?
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that. If you would have asked me about 6 years ago if I wanted to become a social worker, I would have laughed and said, "Yeah, right. I don't know if I would have do that." Because unfortunately, at the time, I think still this very day, social workers have that stigma of that negative stigma of pulling kids out of the home.
Yeah.
And so,
kind of working for DCF, right?
DCF, yes. And so, social work, that's one aspect of it. Social work is very broad, as I've learned getting more into the program. And so, why social work is because one thing that really bothered me to pursue this, another side note, and the driving force for me to pursue this career is that 22 veterans commit suicide every day. And that kind of struck a chord with me because I've had fellow veterans who served in combat and have attempted to take their lives. And actually, one of them succeeded, unfortunately. And you think their life is going great, but there are other underlying issues. They're doing well. They got a nice home. They got a family. And then this happens, and it's just baffling. And so I want to help people. I want to help my fellow veterans. And so I asked myself, what can I do to help alleviate this? Help. I mean, one thing about social workers, we try to put on the cape and try to save the world, but there's only so much we could do. So my thing is, what could I do to help?
It's something that you say that because I remember, I can see where I was sitting. I see the TV, and I remember this period of time where it was like every day, in the news they were talking about how many soldiers or service members had ended their life that day or the day before. It was like they were keeping this running list or number on a daily basis, and I said to myself, I said, it felt like these were my brothers and sisters, right? It's like that's that sense of family that I think military and veterans have, and I had that even though I spent only like 3 years active and 3 years reserve peacetime. I still, when I was hearing that, I was like, oh my gosh, these are my brothers and sisters. And I said, okay, what can I do? I want to do something, right? And then that led me to eventually working at a VA as one of 3 people who started their suicide prevention program. And I would never have said that that's what I would be doing. Willow, we talked about spirit guides, right? And that idea that we resonate toward things, and they may be things that you would never maybe do or have considered, right? So I never at that point when I said I want to help, I wanted to find something to do, did I know that like 6 months later they would be looking for people to create their suicide prevention program, right? And that I would put my private practice on hold so that I can go and work at the VA for that program. And that's working for the VA is another thing that if you would have asked me 6 months ago if I would do that, I'd be like, no way. There is no way. I am so different than that environment. And but there I was, right, wanting to help my brothers and sisters with the suicide prevention.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, and I find that most veterans will identify better with fellow veterans. So they're willing to sit down and talk and share with a veteran because we're on the same. They understand. We understand each other. I mean,
right.
It's whether someone I could sit down and talk with a Marine, another Marine infantry guy, and we can just total instant bond right there because
right, you could poke at each other, right? It's like, oh yeah, Marines are really better than the, it's like, oh, you're in the Air Force.
Yeah, we go back and forth. Yep, the Army.
But still, when all that's done, you still are fellow veterans, brothers and sisters, right?
It's a good sibling rivalry, as we call it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Us soldiers will crack on the Marines, and Marine will crack on us Army guys and Air Force guys, and we all crack on the Air Force guys, and
right. Well, so as you're pursuing your quest for knowledge, what was it that then led you to pursue your master's? I mean, was that something that you always thought you would do?
I've always had a desire to pursue my master's. It's always been in my bucket list. But when I made that goal, initially years ago, I didn't know in what. Would it be criminal justice and so it turns out to be social work. And having that desire to become a social worker and to become a clinical social worker, I've actually went through the VA program, vocational rehabilitation, and that helped me get my undergraduate degree in social work. And so to be able to achieve to become a clinical social worker, you have to have a master's in social work. And so the steps to that is get your bachelor's first, and then you go into your master's degree, and then after you achieve your master's degree, pursue licensure. And so that's where those were the steps that I needed to go. I mean, I wanted to be here, so I need to take these steps to get where I need to be.
And you just outlined that, right? Those are like stepping stones, and you have this vision that was out there in the future, in your future, which was a licensed social worker. Maybe even you might have a vision of the environment that you would be working in, right? Yes. But it's not that easy, right? You just don't go, oh, I want to be a licensed social worker, and you just start hopping along on the stepping stones. Now, there are so many obstacles in the way. Was it easy for you?
I think nothing in life is easy. There's always something that that might be a hindrance to us. And so I posted something on Facebook this morning, and I became a little inspired this morning, and so I posted this. If you have a goal, keep pushing towards it. You may have hurdles, hiccups, and setbacks. Keep pushing forward. Never give up.
Oh my gosh, that is like just so perfect, and so perfect about what we are talking about today.
And the main thing about that is the biggest challenge is balance. So, me coming out of the military, many of us have families. We have wives and we have children, and so I have to be a husband. I have to be a dad. I have to be a student. I have to be a mentor to other military personnel working in the military affairs office, and so it's having that balance.
Yes.
And so as I mentioned, you have hurdles, and there's stuff that's gonna get you down. Bad events might happen. Is that
Mm-hmm.
it's just something that's something else you need to overcome to get to where you want to be. Just focus on the
Yeah.
prize, basically.
Yes. I think, a lot of people again get stuck in stagnant and maybe not even move forward because they see this obstacle and they say, there's no way I can get around that. I can't go through it. I can't find a way around it. I can't hop over it. So
Yes.
therefore now this is not going to happen. I'm stuck. I can't go forward. Right? Versus, yeah, it's an obstacle. Maybe you're not
Yeah.
going to get to exactly where you had envisioned, but you keep going because you don't know where you may even wind up if you keep going with that vision in front of you.
Exactly.
So, I'm interested in knowing something that I don't know if this is anything that you've thought about before, or if it really even matters. But I found it interesting that you worked for 23 years in a very male dominant environment and career. I remember when I was in the military, it was like one female to every 10 males, and I could go into the mess hall and be the only female in there. Right. So that was quite an experience for me. But you 23 years in a male dominant environment, and then you transition into and you walk your path, new chapter in an environment and career path that is predominantly female. I think it's I know I get the numbers kind of messed up, but 10% males, social workers, females are dominant, 83% males in the military. So, what was that like for you? Or does it even matter?
Um, to be honest with you, it didn't really matter, but I didn't even find out that it was. I kind of knew, but I didn't really find out till getting into social work that it's a female dominated field. Um, so it didn't really bother me because I knew what I needed to do and learn this knowledge I needed to know and to become a clinical social worker. That's was one path, and so it was actually males that actually convinced me uh, to come into this field. And one of the males was he used to be a professor at St. Leo. He's now at UCF, Dr. James Whitworth, which is still my mentor this very day.
Uh-huh.
I met with him, and he decided, even before him, another social worker, um, Brian Scott at the vet center, actually talked with me and said, "You like to help people. Why don't you look into social work?"
Hmm.
And so, even going through the voc rehab screening, social work was one of them.
So
On
that came up on your
that
testing
came
and
up on my
assessment.
testing
Wow.
exactly. And
Hmm.
so, Dr. Whitworth convinced me to pursue this. He asked me a whole bunch of questions. He must have talked for about at least an hour. And so,
Hmm.
I had all my documentation with me. So, after our conversation, I went up to the administration office, and a couple hours later, I'm at St. Leo Line.
Hmm. So, just another example of how you just continue to move towards what was resonated.
It did feel
Yeah.
kind of funny being in my cohort. We had about 6 members, and 4 of them were women, and 2 of us were guys, and the other gentleman was also an Army veteran.
Hmm.
Um, Even in my classes, because even though I worked for military affairs during the day, I took some of my classes during the day, and I'll be the only guy in the class. It felt kind of weird, but then it didn't. I knew what I was there to do,
Hmm.
and I guess I'm surrounded by women all day. I'm outnumbered even at home. I have a wife and 2 lovely daughters, and so it doesn't.
Hmm.
I guess I'm kind of used to it, and
That's just the way it is.
it's just the way it is. So I'm not going to change it. I guess what they're trying to do is get more males involved in social work, which
Hmm. helping your brothers and sisters in arms always part of that vision for you in the future that you saw?
Yes, that's one of the reasons why I pursued social work is because that's one way I can help my brothers and sisters. Um,
Mhm.
because of like I mentioned, the suicide rate, the government spends so much money on training military personnel. Like, for example, it costs about $1 million to train a fighter pilot, and then maybe a couple $1 million to, over their course of their career, to train like a Navy SEAL or an Army Green Beret,
Right.
and the other special operations soldiers like pararescue, any type of
Mhm.
those um, special operations. And also with other technical fields in the military, it's for nuclear and stuff like that. I mean, military personnel learn those skills, and a lot of them can be brought into the civilian world. And
Mhm.
so, them learning all those skills and the money the government spends on them, and then they have issues coming out. I mean, there should be some kind of helpful transition
Yeah. Well, tell me
there.
about your job that you do now. 'Cause I know that's part of what you do now. Talk about what you do in your job.
Absolutely. What I do now, I work for a nonprofit company organization called the Boley Center. We're located in St. Petersburg, Florida. We have offices throughout Pinellas County, and I think we're expanding into Hillsborough County, and we have like
Oh.
facilities all over Pinellas County. And we have an
Mhm.
office up here in Pasco County, which we have the HRP, Homeless Veteran Reintegration Program,
Mhm.
and there's about 6 of us in the office up here. And so what I do, I'm a veteran employment consultant. I
Oh.
help homeless veterans find jobs. Well, I don't really like to use homeless and veteran in the same sentence.
Mhm.
Um, veterans in transition. What we do, we try to find them employment, and how we do that. One of the ways we do that is we do it through avocation and what's called job development. Like, for
Mhm.
example, if a client desires a certain job, I would actually send a resume with my cover letter and their cover letter in advance, and I would also go to that employer and establish a relationship with that employer or employers, and we go out and we also help locate uh, jobs also,
Mhm.
and we do other things. We also help with interview prep,
Mhm.
help them on their elevator speech. We help them with revise their resume to make it look
Mhm.
presentable, and also we actually help with if they have we have a little closet in our office if they need like business attire. We have
Wow.
like suits and ties and
Oh
shirts
my goodness, that's
to help them
awesome.
out. So, and another
Yeah.
thing we can't do it right now because of COVID, is to we help transport them. We like bring them to if they there's a place they want to apply to, we'd actually would bring them there
Mhm.
to apply, and for their first interview, we'd actually bring them to their interview early to make sure they get there, so they have
Yes.
that opportunity to interview and get the job.
Mhm.
And
So you
also,
basically what you're saying is that y- you help veterans remove those obstacles or find a way around those obstacles, right? To have the resources so that to help them continue in their kind of their becoming, journey.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
and another thing that I found interesting that I had seen before, and you mentioned about resumes, is that it's very difficult to take a resume, the experiences that a military service member had in their MOS, and transfer those skills over on paper, really,
yes.
to a resume for a civilian job, right? It's like a whole different language, a whole different way of describing what they did in order to show that it's something that they can do now in a position. How do you help with that?
Yeah, one thing in the military, it's a whole different culture, as you mentioned. We have we have our own jargon, our own language, and also we have we use a lot of acronyms in the military, and so, for example, I'll use my resume. One part of my resume, when I was in the Army, I was a squad leader. I led 8 soldiers in combat operations, and so how do you rephrase that to fit a civilian resume? Would be I supervised 8 individuals through training and counseling them and mentoring.
Right.
So
And you know what? That doesn't even say it, right? Because when I think about the technical pieces of like the equipment,
yes,
and all of the education training that every MOS and some very very intense trainings to go through to kind of make it so simple, because that kind of sounded like, I supervised 8 people, and
yes,
then there's just so much more to it.
exactly.
Another thing that I don't have what you think about this. It's another thing that I really uh, kind of bothers me is that the struggle that some military service members have transferring over into civilian jobs. For example, medics, right? They are, not only do they have that training, but they are out there on the field. They are, trauma, sometimes even doing surgeries, right? Like, we got to do this right now, right now. We got to do this to save this, this soldier's life, the service member's life. And then they they get discharged, they retire, and they come back into the civilian world, and they can't get jobs as a paramedic because they don't meet the qualifications.
Yes.
They don't have the degree, they don't have the certifications. And here they have probably more experience than even the leadership in the organization, right? And they cannot get jobs. What are your thoughts about that?
It's really bothers me in some effects that someone like a medic, to pursue something like that, they could use their post 9/11 GI Bill, or to actually pursue going back to training. Because I know here in Florida, you come here with a certification, you have to go through the process all over again.
Right.
For example, if a firefighter comes from another state like New York, coming here to Florida, they still got to go through the program and go through the certification process. So that's one thing. Another thing that our veterans have, they come to us with barriers. Some of our veterans might have not did well in the military. Some have like general discharges, less than honorable, bad conduct discharges. And so our organization, we can't help anyone who has a dishonorable discharge. We can't do that. And so our clients have barriers. And so, for example, like if someone came to us who was a medic or a paramedic, and they had a DUI, which that could have led to the downward spiral, becoming homeless, losing that license, they can't operate an ambulance anymore. Then that caused other problems. They losing that job, and then the mortgage is due, rent's due, they get down, they're homeless. And so that's kind of what we deal with, people who are in that position. And so a lot of the barriers that people have criminal records, DUIs, and some lose their licenses because no insurance and stuff like that. And so a lot of them don't have transportation. That's another barrier, and we deal with all these barriers.
Yes.
And so what we do, we also partner with other organizations such as St. Vincent de Paul, which deal with the housing part, and also with Career Source. We work as a team to help this veteran with employment. And so with our organization, we try to help everybody. All veterans come to us. If we can't help you, we will find someone who can. We're not the end all be all. We don't want to be a roadblock. We try to help as much as we can. If we can't help you, we will find someone who can.
Right. You just mentioned something that it just really bugs me. You you mentioned that you don't provide services to veterans who have a dishonorable discharge, and they can't get services even from the VA. They're not even considered veterans, right? And what bugs me is that some of them have served in combat, multiple deployments, put their life on the line, and then, they come back and maybe as an outcome of those experiences, let's say with PTSD, substance abuse, that they get into trouble. They have multiple DUIs or there's domestic violence, some assaults, and they get discharged a dishonorable discharge. Uh,
This is appalling.
That it just really bothers me. And to hear that it's even a civilian organization does that without considering what may have led to that dishonorable discharge, and what did they do before that, right? What was their role? What sacrifices have they made, right? Oh my gosh. And to come back and not be considered a veteran and get services.
Very sad. I found because, like you mentioned, soldier, sailor, airman, we went to war for this country, sacrificed, and been been trained to do a certain job. A lot of time and money is invested in this individual, and them to come out and the effects from it is we're trying to do something, but I think the thing is um, I think it's becoming more now is how you can deal with the after effects. And of course, being in combat has a mental effect on you, and of course, physically if you get wounded.
Hmm.
And so I believe that there should be we should help these individuals because if you look at a discharge, dishonorable discharge is like dirty laundry for the rest of your life,
Yes.
unfortunately.
Yes.
And
Oh
so
my gosh. All the
it
benefits, veteran benefits, like
ex-
like buying a house, for example,
exactly
VA loans.
yes, and I believe that we should take look at the underlying issues. Why, unfortunately, through the trauma, this person makes a bad decision, acts out of emotion, or can be having the worst day of their life, and they do something, hurt someone, hurt themselves,
Right.
and that one decision um, affects them for the rest of their
Just like
lives and others.
wipes out everything that they
Pretty
did and all
much,
the sacrifice and,
yes.
just, yeah,
I
that
think
just
we should
bugs me.
emphasize that because I believe that person's still above dirt. Uh, they we this and they if they're willing, they could be salvaged. I mean, their life
Yes.
can be put back together. And unfortunately, all in addition to the barriers that our clients have, some of them have substance abuse and mental trauma. And so I've had a client where trying to get him a job, but he was dealing with other, and I highly recommended that you go take care of that mental issue, that substance issue. You take care of that, and once you get that on track, come back to me, and we could go forth and help you. And so
Hmm.
it's all about helping the veteran become
Hmm.
a better person, become in light of that their checkered past or their
Right.
something they're labeled with. There's still a chance as long as they're alive and they're willing. There's a
Hmm.
way. I mean, I believe that you don't give up. I mean, life is hard
Right.
as is, and if you're willing, there are people out there that are willing to help you.
Right. I want to mention that the one thing that has changed with the VA is that they changed the regulations that allow veterans who have mental illness, that they will treat veterans that have mental illness, not anything else. They don't provide the health care. Um, but anybody who may have had mental illness, that they can show that when they were in the military, and I think it's like 2 years, that they develop a mental health issue, after their discharge, that they will provide help with them. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, because when I was at the VA, they kind of kept it quiet. And I don't know why. I'm thinking that they were just afraid of being inundated by, with veterans who needed help. So I hope that more veterans know that, that it's much more known that they can get help.
Exactly.
Did you ever hear of that the VA would provide mental health treatment?
I never heard of that. That's new to me, but I'm glad that they're doing that, because, like I mentioned earlier, what's the underlying issue here? Why did they get that discharge? Why? What was it? Was just out of, could have been something that was caused from trauma and PTSD. I mean, that's something that I've never heard of it, but I'm glad that the VA is pursuing that. And
I'll give you the regulations later. I'll send it to you, because, like I said, it's very quietly done. And I would hope, after all this time, I think it's now been 7 years maybe since they did that, 6 years,
yes,
that it would be more well known. But when you tell me here you are somebody who provides resources and knows what's available, and you're not aware of that.
yes. Another thing that I noticed, that a service member who actually served deployed and come back, and they're not in the VA system, or even if they didn't serve and or they didn't deploy, what happens to one of my clients is that he suffered from a mental issue, and so what happened was, he got involved. I encouraged him to go on to the VA, or to see a veteran service officer. And so what happened was, he had documentation that this happened to him. And so what happens is, they become service connected with the VA, and then when they become service connected with the VA, they can now pursue. They could also receive medical care through the VA. I've seen that before.
So you bring up another thing. I tell veterans, and I hope that you do too, is that get to the VA. Sometimes veterans think, well, I don't have there's nothing wrong with me. I don't need to go, I don't have the need for it, without realizing that if there was an injury during their period of service,
yes,
it could even be a car accident, or broke a leg when you were playing volleyball on a Saturday or something, that's still considered service connected. And maybe it doesn't bother you now,
yes,
but 10 years from now, you might start developing arthritis. And if you don't start in the beginning to kind of have that service connected injury in your records, 10 years later, you're going to have problems. They might going to say, well, it's because because you worked at UPS after you got out of the military, right?
Exactly.
And cut themselves out of what could be, really some significant help, and sometimes even a disability and some financial help with that.
Well, yes, actually, because a lot of things that's what I tell a lot of my, even people who are in the military now. If anything happens, you can make sure you get it documented.
Yes, and get your records.
Get everything documented. If, like we say in social work, if it's not documented, it never happened.
Exactly.
And so, I had another client that actually spent, as far as $1 million being spent on him, he was a nuke technician in the Navy, which is probably the most challenging academic curriculums in the U.S. military. And so he got into an accident, and he was on duty. He got hit by a car on base, and so the thing was getting that documented. So he had that documentation, and so once you get that documented and you go to a VSO, I encourage you to go to a VSO. You get that documented, service connected, and then that's how we started receiving care from the VA.
Yes. Yeah. So you bring up again another just like another example of barriers, the
Yes.
physical barriers or disabilities that people on their becoming path may be disabled, become disabled, but in their minds now it's, well, I can't do it. I cannot get around this. I cannot pursue what I had always dreamed of and what was resonating for me to pursue. And that doesn't necessarily have to be true.
Yeah, it's just a barrier. For example, I was watching a YouTube video one time where it's actually Army Green Beret. He lost his leg right
Mhm.
right above his hip, right below his hip, down, and he was so determined. This is his job, this was his life, and so he was able to get a prosthetic and still serve in the special forces community, and before he left, and so there are many different barriers. I mean, there's just something put in front of you, and you could go over it, around it, through it.
Mhm.
It's your desire to want to be. And so I do have clients that actually can no longer do physical stuff. And so I have clients that did roofing in the past, construction, like, nah, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do something more that's less physical. And so
Mhm.
I gear their job search towards finding something like more sedentary, like in an office environment or something in
Mhm.
retail that's
Right.
that's a little less physical.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
there's if you have the will to want to work and to better yourself, it's up to you. I mean,
Right.
you set goals and aspirations for yourself and decide that the drive to pursue it.
What is always inspiring for me is when I see a military veteran who may have lost both their limbs, and there they are running a race,
Yes,
right? Like, how did they do that, right? Talk about, I'm not going to let this get in my way.
exactly. It's determination. If you want to, it's life is what you put into it, and if you want to do something, you want to be something, you want to become something, you got to have a goal and steps to get to that goal. You have
Right.
to fulfill small goals at first. As far as them, they had to learn how to walk again, how to function
Right.
with prosthetics, and so, and then leading up to, okay, I'll start walking, and then I'll start running, and then I'll compete in
Right.
the Special Olympics. It's just
Right.
something that you want to do. If you focus on doing something, then you're able to do it. And another thing, in addition to that, is a lot of these, um, God bless them, their wives were a lot of these veterans who become disabled or stuck with them. And so I heard a story of a soldier that lost both his legs and one arm, and so he was in the hospital at Walter Reed saying, "Okay, all right, honey, if you want to get divorced, I understand." And she's like, "What are you talking about? We're
Wow.
in this together." And so
Yes.
I think that's another aspect that's very important is the support of others.
Yes. And you're talking about that, even again, that becoming, that it's about even relationships that are very important, and for that person to think, well, you're not going to want me anymore, I'm not valuable, I can't contribute to the family. That's another one, right?
Yes,
That the belief that their loved one is just automatically in that mindset of, you're a burden. No, and that's one of the risk factors for suicide,
yes,
is the belief that they are a burden to their family or even to society. It's like
yes.
even bigger than that.
Actually, and also, and another thing, even though we have spouses who are very supportive, and you also have spouses who are not.
And
That's
you know
another.
what? Spouses are males too.
Yes, exactly.
my
Yes,
my husband, and ex now, was a male dependent, right? That's what they
yes,
would
he was.
call
Yep.
them. And it was funny. I have this memory of, there was a big dinner, and yeah, we were all in our formal uniforms, right?
Dress
What did they
uniforms,
call dress uniform? Right.
your class A's or your blues or whatever.
And then there was this stand up dependents, wives who sacrificed too, and if it wasn't for you, my boots wouldn't be shined where I can see my face, and if it wasn't for you, my uniforms wouldn't be starched, and I meals wouldn't be. I mean, it was just all of this, and hey, stand up, and there's my husband of the time, like, standing up, and he's the only male, and believe me, he didn't he did not iron my uniform or spit shine my boots.
I did all that myself.
Mm-hmm.
I took pride in doing that stuff.
Yeah, that is part of that, right? That is part of that.
Yes,
I am a soldier,
exactly.
whatever branch it is, and shine in those brass, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh. So much. I think you just contribute so much, and very helpful for others to hear your story, because you are showing that the military service member and the veteran, how many obstacles that can be in front of them, and that there are so many of those obstacles where other people would say, no, I can't do it, I can't go on, and you can be a role model, right? It's like, well, what is the difference too? You think what is the difference between somebody who's been in the military, who says, I'm not going to let these barriers get in my way, and is there a difference, do you think, with civilians, that they may not have that same mindset?
I guess it's because in the military, it's all about mission. You have a mission. You need to do this. You need to do this in preparation for this mission. And I guess those civilians who haven't had that guidance, there's some civilians I know that are very punctual, that have that mind goal, that
Absolutely.
mindset. So I guess, yeah, it depends who your mentors are, civilian wise. It's like, if you want to pursue something, you actually will uh, pursue, go talk with someone, or try to be with those around who have that positive influence. That's part of it. And I guess in the military, it's more structured. It's more of a structure. Okay, you need to do this. You need to do that. Okay, for us to do this, we need to accomplish this before we could do that.
Yeah, so not even in the training or the levels of training, but also in promotions, right? Moving up the line and in rank is
Yes,
one of those goals that are just the normal part of being in the military. It's
exactly.
just assumed that's what you're going to be doing. You're always moving towards the next rank.
Yes, exactly. And we have a saying in the infantry. I was in the infantry, man. Is cross rifles, keep it moving forward. So we're always going forward.
Yes.
We might come to a barrier, but it's
Right.
either go over it, around it, through it.
Hmm.
It's just keep moving forward. You might have to slow it down a little bit, but just keep the momentum going forward.
Right. So just keep going, stepping stone to stepping stone to stepping
Exactly.
stone. And I made an assumption that was probably wrong. I made this assumption that people in the military are much more geared towards moving along and getting around their obstacles, and that is not true. I don't know if we were to
It is
do a
not true.
kind of an assessment of the differences in military service members, veterans, and civilians in their level of motivation and drive. I made it an assumption that it's probably not true.
I guess on the most part, I think that's what promotes. I mean, that stands out as far as for employers, is that this guy or girl's in the military. They're punctual, they're on time, they're task oriented.
Mm-hmm.
But then I do have clients that once they get out of the military, they become lackadaisy, and they
Mm-hmm.
have no desire. They want to sit back, relax. Some actually self medicate
Yeah.
with substances and alcohol. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate,
Mm-hmm.
but that's another barrier that some of these veterans need to have to
Mm-hmm.
overcome, is that substance abuse,
Right.
and I think the thing behind it is that the desire is like they become apathetic.
Mm-hmm.
That uh, drives them to like I really don't want to do anything anymore. I don't know if I should pursue this um they become so dependent on other people. They want them to
Mm.
do things for them, and so
Yeah.
we
So
only
it
could do
works.
so much. I could lead you to water, but I can't force
Mm-hmm.
you to drink it.
Right. Same
Basically,
thing. I don't remember the statistics, but I know maybe you do know it's very low, the percentage of service members, veterans that actually use their GI Bill, or if they use it, they drop out. I think it's like, I think it's something like only 10% actually go and move through and get their degrees. Have you heard anything about the statistics for that?
I haven't heard any statistics, but in my experience, especially at St. Leo, which is I had an awesome experience there. It's probably that's just like you. That was my best experience at a university at St.
Mm-hmm.
Leo. I find that that's a great thing that most service members that actually veterans that come into school, their GPAs are much higher because we're
Mm-hmm.
more and focused, and then we're task oriented, and so it's rare that actually a veteran would actually drop out of class. Usually, it's
Mm-hmm.
for other outside factors with the family or
Mm-hmm.
other factors. But as far as determination and actually doing the
Yeah.
work and pursuing, I find it
Mm-hmm.
quite the opposite. That those who the veterans
That
GPAs
they don't jump.
that
But
actually
you
are
think
much higher.
about it, almost 100% of veterans get a GI Bill, right?
Yes,
So you would assume then there would be more veterans in your class,
you'd assume that, yes, but
right?
the ones that do come in, on the most part,
Mm-hmm.
they're they got a
Right.
mission, they're mission focused. Boom, I need
Right.
to get this degree. Yep. So it kind of baffles me that also for your service, I mean, you receive these benefits, and I believe that veterans should use these benefits. You earn them.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, a lot of veterans don't realize that they have like this 5-year window at the VA for specific services that after that 5 years they may need to, it, it might be based on their income. They go into
Yes.
that kind of that back into, well, now you have a copay because of your income, things like that, or certain services are no longer available. So, and a lot of veterans don't know that. Combat veterans don't know they have that 5 year, and we know that it is about 5 years as in on average
Yes.
that a veteran pursues services or goes to a VA. So a lot of them lose out on a lot of their services.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. So we have to wrap up, but I do have a few other questions. Can you please provide information how people can contact you, or people who know veterans can contact you for your service, for what you do?
I work at the Boley Center. Our office is in Newport Richey, off of Grand Boulevard, and in Gulf.
Hmm.
We are located at 5411 Grand Boulevard.
Hmm.
Our phone number is 727-339-3501. And those veterans who may be homeless or in danger of being homeless,
Hmm.
uh, they can uh, they can be eligible for our services.
Right.
And we try to help everybody. If we can't help you, we will find someone who can.
Right.
And as a side note, and if you're struggling, if you're a veteran, please seek help. Talk to somebody.
Right.
Talk to Dr. Lynn. Talk to me. Talk to somebody,
Mhm.
because the government, the military has invested time and money in you, and you possess a lot of good qualities that
Yes.
society could use. And so, if you need help with anything, please reach out.
Yes. Okay. So all of your contact information will be in the podcast episode description. So we won't miss that. I have one more question. Well, before I go there, Willow, do you have any questions? You've been quiet.
Sorry. I don't have any questions, but I do want to thank you for the service that you provide for others and the service that you have done for your country. So thank you.
Thank you for your support, Willow. Glad to meet you.
Absolutely.
So one other thing. What do you think about being called a warrior? I use that when I'm writing about something that has to do with military, or I'm speaking, providing a presentation. I use the term warrior. What do you think about that? That term being used for you?
As a warrior, I look at it as a badge of honor, because the definition of a warrior is someone who's experienced in art of war, and that's what a warrior is. Mm-hmm. And so, being a warrior, it's also used in other contexts. Like, for example, those who are religious can look at it as a prayer warrior, riding warrior, or. And so that's another ways we could use it.
So you can see that it is applied to other roles or other professions.
Yes. A warrior in the pursuit of a cause to help other veterans.
When I think warrior, reading, say, history of war, right? And it goes way back into ancient times, and they're called warriors. Yes. Right, and you get this image from that of those times, and to think of it that way, that it's just that over all these decades and centuries that there's warriors in every era, and you are one of them, and you are making history. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Incredible. It's just what an incredible becoming story, and certainly an inspiration for all of us. John mentioned that he knows fellow soldiers who attempted to end their lives, and that he even knows one of them who did end his own life. And that is really reminding us of the fact that for years we have been seeing a steady rise in suicides among our warriors. And this trend continues. There were more suicides among active duty members in 2019 than there were in 2018. So it continues to rise. If you are a person in crisis, if you are having feelings of hopelessness, if you're having thoughts of dying, or even thoughts about what you might do or how you might end your life if you were to, please, 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 please reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. The number is 800-273-8255, and if you're a veteran, press 1. I'll repeat that. 800-273-8255, and if you are a veteran, press 1. But what's really awesome is that calling is not the only way that you can reach out if you need to. You can actually live chat or even text with one of their responders. And so I have that information in the episode description. Website, phone numbers, things like that. John's message was, keep pushing forward, never give up. You keep those words in mind as you travel along your becoming path this week. Thank you for listening to my show. You can help support and inspire others by liking, following, and sharing this podcast with your friends and family. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Becoming with Dr. Lynn. So that's Becoming _with Dr. Lynn, DRLYNNE. Thank you.